Hi folks, I'm Misty, this is Misty Steps. Kick off your shoes, get comfy, and welcome to my office where we are going to discuss house rules. If you're new to D&D, house rules are rules that are not officially in the game, they're not officially in the SRD or in any sort of player's handbook, but they are calls that the DM might make in order to either up the difficulty level, make it easier to understand, anything like that. In the case of my house rules, I do have some that are only for specific tables. So, for example, my high intrigue game needs some different house rules than what my normal high fantasy D&D traditional table would. So today I'm going to break down what house rules I use when, and we're going to break that up into different categories. So I will have the overlapping rules and then the ones that I use specifically for different types of games. As far as general rules, there are 7 that I have that carry across all the D&D games I run at my table. For context, I do run both 2014 as well as 2024, and they seem to carry over fairly well. All 7 of these rules seem to work with both variations of 5th edition, so just context for that. Rule 1, we do max crits at my place. So if you were to roll an attack roll at my table and you roll a 20, we're doing maximum damage. The reason that I do this is because it kind of sucks to roll a nat 20 and you get to roll double damage and then you end up rolling 2 ones and you could have done more damage on just a normal roll. The flip side of that is that my monsters also get max crits, so, we're swinging hard on both sides. But essentially what these maximum crits are, you will take the max amount of damage that you can possibly do, and then add that to whatever you roll. So if you roll a nat 20 and you were going to stab them with your D6 short sword, that D6 is a 6, plus whatever you roll, plus your proficiency. And then if there's any additional types of damage, like plus a D10 of poison damage because it was poisoned, then you get 10 poison damage plus then whatever you roll on that D10 as well. So anywhere from 16 to, 6 plus 10, 32. So anywhere between 16 to 32 damage you're doing instead of just a maximum amount of 16. It makes crits during combat really exciting and it keeps people hoping to get those. And I haven't seen it really come back to bite me at all. I actually took this from my DM who ran our Strahd campaign. So even with all of the monsters in there that could crit, it ended up being a non-issue for the most part. Definitely made games higher stakes, but definitely more fun and more satisfying. House rule number 2. Short rests are like 10-minute breathers to catch your breath. As someone who recently started playing their very first Warlock, it is very frustrating when you feel like you need a breather, but nobody else needs a breather, and you want to get your spell slots back, but no one else really needs to. But by making them like 10, 20-minute breathers, it really speeds things up. This is also something I got from Baldur's Gate 3. When you hit the short rest button in Baldur's Gate 3, it is an instant refresh. Instead of having to go to camp for an hour or spend portions of your camp supplies, they're just ready to go. So in-game for us, short rests are, take a breather, slap a band-aid on it, use a hit die if you need to, and we're on our way. Again, I haven't found this to be game-breaking, but it does give the opportunity then for those who need short rests to regain spell slots or anything to get that opportunity without feeling like they're slowing the pace of action. As if you're running through a dungeon, you don't want to take an hour, you just want to get to the end. But a 10-minute breather, most people will feel like they can take. House rule number 3. If you use a potion outside battle, you can get the full hit dice back without a roll. If you use the potion in battle as a bonus action, you'll have to roll to see what you get back, because you're just kind of slinging it back and hoping for the best. You can also use a full action to roll that potion and get full hit dice back. but it does make it just a little bit more questionable on if people want to use their action to get the full hit dice back, or if they're just going to test their luck. Again, it's heightening stakes without making it feel like it's a meat grinder. I don't know, it works well for our table, and it means less math all around, so I think people have been pretty happy with it. Another Baldur's Gate 3 change, Speak with Animals, and probably a couple of other spells that I can't think of, lasts all day. Because if a squirrel and you talking to a squirrel can ruin my game, there are bigger problems than you being able to talk to a squirrel. I think that it's really cool for the druid to be able to talk to animals at any time that they want to if they're doing the live, laugh, nature thing. But to use a spell slot and only get 10 minutes of that kind of makes the flavor not as exciting. So they get all day. There's a couple of other spells that I can't think of that I'm sure would also have that same ruling where I would say it can last all day, just depending on what that spell is. House Rule 5. Homebrew, third-party races, classes, totally fine at my table. The one thing that I do need, though, is that I need all of the info. I need the entire webpage, the stat blocks, the guidelines to what happens, so that I can peruse them and give an okay. I'm totally fine with any of my players deciding to do some winged tiefling variant from Ghostfire Games, whatever. Totally fine with that. I just need to know what it does ahead of time for a couple of different reasons. The first reason, making sure it's not busted. I have never had to ban an Eloquence Bard or a Twilight Cleric, but there is a reason that those are so commonly banned at tables, and I want to make sure that we're not getting into a similar situation with that. But also, number 2, I want to be able to shoot my monks. And for those who haven't heard that expression before, monks can deflect missiles, and if your subclass or your class that's homebrewed has a cool feature like that that I need to be aware of so that I can give you that time to shine and look and feel really cool in the game, I need to know what that is, and I need that information. House Rule 6 involves spell scrolls. Again, I'm using Baldur's Gate 3 rules. You're probably seeing a trend here that Baldur's Gate had a big impact on my house rules. But in Baldur's Gate 3, either the spellcaster can use the scroll to add it to their spellbook, or literally anyone else can use it as a one-time use. So, example, if there's a scroll of Misty Step, the fighter can use that as a one-time use of Misty Step before the scroll disintegrates and disappears, even if they don't normally have spell slots, or the wizard can use the scroll and add Misty Step to their spellbook later. Both are totally fine. My final house rule that I use across all tables, number 7, is that we use Fade to Black as our safety tool. Fade to Black, if something is getting too gruesome, too violent, too whatever, I can simply fade to black. The players know to just hit the table so that it gets my attention, so that I see it right away. They say fade to black. We skip, no questions asked. We might take a bathroom break and I will discuss with that player, make sure that they're actually okay. But, you know, we move on to the next scene. This hasn't really had to be used too much because we go through what limits are for people, but it's important that everyone knows that just in case we get a little too invested in the scene. And it's nice to have them physically smack the table to get my attention, because if they try to just hold up a card and I'm focused on the other side of the table for a scene, or if they message me and I'm not paying attention to my computer because again I'm absorbed in that scene, it's nice to be able to have something pull us back from that. Now, aside from those 7 rules that are applied to all of my games, there are 2 additional rules that I use specifically for high intrigue games. Social status heavy games like the Fogs of London game that I've mentioned before, where reputation is on the line. Those types of games have additional rules because of the nature of those games. So, number 1, no silvery barbs. I do allow silvery barbs in my normal D&D campaigns. But when it's social based and everyone has that high of a charisma score, you end up with a lot of spellcasters, literally an oops all spellcasters team, and then everyone would know Silvery Barbs, and it gets frustrating at best and unplayable at worst when it comes to a boss fight. So we did ban that from the table just to keep things more reasonable. And number 2, I actually have a reputation tracker and a whole rule set for rumors escalating into scandals and letter sending. I won't go into detail on that setup because it's still kind of getting tweaked and we're still adjusting it as we play, just based on situations that come up that maybe I hadn't considered before. But a lot of it was inspired by Dimension 20's Court of Fey and Flowers and the Jane Austen RPG Good Society. If a game calls for stakes and reputation like that, I think that this is a great way to add weight to that mechanically. If people are interested, I can absolutely set up a whole separate video on the system that I have created for this game. I absolutely plan to use this in future games as well. Different, time eras, different settings. But for now, we're still kind of working out the kinks there. But if people are interested, please let me know and I would be happy to talk about it more. And those are the rules that I personally use. But I have seen some other fun ones, so I'm just gonna run through a list that I collected here on my computer of what some other DMs that I've had in the past have used at their table, or what some friends have mentioned running at their table as well, and just see if maybe anyone thinks that those are interesting or wants to use them. Let's see. So one of my DMs, we are running a 2024 campaign. Flanking, instead of getting advantage, it's just a -2 to the AC of the thing being flanked, because it's simply too powerful to get full advantage in their mind. This has been super reasonable for our team. Like, we've been fine with it and it hasn't been an issue. But just something to consider there if you think that maybe flanking has kind of become the MO for your party just to get that sweet, sweet advantage. It certainly can be debuffed. Help actions when done by multiple people will be done as a party success or failure instead of everyone taking a crack at it. So if everyone wants to try and investigate the library to find the magic book, party rolls, party group success or failure instead of just the one person, or instead of everyone individually taking a crack at it. That makes sense. I have definitely done that before, and I've just made that call as it comes up, but I don't have it necessarily as a solid house rule for my games. Kind of just depends on the situation. That same DM that's running our 2024 campaign has a rule where, I'm gonna have to read this one aloud here. Everyone can use spell scrolls, but if the scroll is for a class or casting ability different from your own, they are cast with disadvantage for attack rolls, or defenders have advantage. So, for example, if my rogue wants to cast Fireball, you don't roll to hit with Fireball. It just hits, there's a saving throw. So the people making the saving throw get advantage on that. This makes sense to me. The rogue can use Featherfall and utility spells without an issue, but if the rogue tries to use Fireball, they don't have the Arcana knowledge that a wizard would, so it's more challenging for them to use and a bit easier for people to get out of the way. Story-wise, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's really fun. I do think that could get a little confusing if you have new players, but if everyone at your table has played before and are veteran, I think that that's a great way to go about it. One of the other house rules that I have written down is that in-game secrets are also out-of-game secrets. So players don't learn anything until characters do, and this is really exciting because obviously the players will pick up hints via roleplay scenes. If my warlock talks to the bard and they have a conversation that starts hinting at something, even if our paladin's not there, the player hears that and gets to contemplate that. But it does make the players really nosy, and that in turn makes the characters make some bolder moves because everyone wants to know something, and I think that that's really fun. And of course, a lot of the DMs that I have worked with before use Rule of Cool. Rules are guidelines, and I think if something is going to make for a better story or a cool action scene, I'll let the rules slide and I'll say, yeah, that cantrip can work differently. Because the goal is having fun, I'll stretch what I can within reason, if it means having a cool moment that my players get to talk about later. One of the best things that I've ever actually seen as far as flavor, though, is that whenever someone is rolling a death saving throw, they have a little flashback to a pre-game moment of their life and tell the table what it is their character is thinking of as they roll. It gives the player not just more to do with a boring turn of no combat, but it also adds to the weight of the situation of, this is serious, something is bad, they are dying. I don't know that I would call this as much a house rule, but it is a flavor thing I like, so I wanted to add it in here. Let me know in the comments what your favorite house rules are, and if you think any of these house rules may be getting brought over to your game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.